I think a lot of people don't know what the time period of, if you go back to Costa Rica, how long you would be banned from the United States. So if you could just explain a little bit about that.
Thank you, Brenda, my counterpart. As far as the timeline goes, for example, my parents left 3 years ago. They have 7 more years before they're technically allowed back in the country. There's such a thing called a 10-year ban. Basically, it deals with how many days you've technically been in the United States in the status of undocumented. And if you pass a certain number of days, then you get a certain ban applied. It can be 3 years, it can be 10 years, it can be, it's kind of discretionary. But my parents can't come back for 7 more years, and I can't leave the country because if I leave the country, I surrender my current status, which is the deferral that allows me to go to school and work and drive and all those wonderful things that I'm very thankful for. But then if I have to leave next July 31st, I can also face the 10-year ban, and that's something I don't like to think about very often because of the fact that, I don't have family here, per se, blood relatives, but I do have family here as far as I'm concerned. I live with my best friend and her family, and they've taken me in, and I'm a part of their family. And I can't imagine not being there for my friends' weddings and not being there for, the birth of their children and their baptisms and all that, stuff that you really cherish. And that's something really hard to think about and to think about, missing. But I've always said that, I'll do whatever is God's plan. I have very strong faith, and I also know that I'm going to fight till the end, no matter what, and that this is a fight that's bigger than myself and my story. It's a fight that affects thousands of students. 65,000 students graduate every year from high school that can't go on to college. And that's a shame because some of those students are just brilliant, that deserve a shot at going to college. So, I'm hoping that at least from all of this, at least we can gain some help for them and stop families from being separated like mine were. So, thanks.
Okay, as an advocate for the DREAM Act, how do you react to the facts in the news that generate these stereotypes that are what base Congress's want to generate these illegal immigrants and push them out of the country? So how do you react to the real news stories that happen that generate these ideas?
The stereotypes that you see on television,
Yeah.
the news stories? Okay.
As far as the news stories go, thank you for your question, it's quite interesting because, I've had articles come out that have all the facts in it, the fact that I go to private school, the fact that I pay for school, the fact that I've gotten private scholarships based on, my grades and my community service and, my leadership. But, there's still always responses, this person's a drain on our society, why is she taking up, a person's spot in college, and it's like, actually that's not what it says in the article. So my biggest thing when I advocate for immigration reform is to get people to actually listen to the facts, to put aside, how it is that you feel before going in, before listening, and show me the same respect that I'm showing you, and I think a lot of times people at least take a step back and actually do that and actually learn something from it. And whether or not their opinion changes is another issue, but at least they've taken that opportunity to really think about it. I think as far as Congress and the president goes, it's been an issue that's just so divisive for many reasons, but the primary factor is that people aren't informed, and that's what I ask, is that people get out there, people read, take it upon themselves, be a concerned citizen, really, learn what it is that the immigration problem consists of and what are some possible solutions, and get involved because, in order to make this country better, we all have to have a hand in it, and that's part of our civic duty. So that's what I always push for, and I may not have the right to vote, but I have the right to speak, so that's what I try and use.
Any more questions? Any more questions from the audience? That's there in the back.
Hi. I was just wondering wondering if you could explain the rationale behind the opportunity that you had for the deferral, and if you pursued that, or was that something that was presented to you as an option, and how it came about?
The deferral that I have is actually a discretionary measure that the DHS has given me. It's based on their own, kind of, I guess, they have the right to give it or not give it, and that's why I always say that I'm really lucky, and I don't really understand why I got it. I know that I've had a lot of community support in the past. When my parents were sent back, there was a national campaign that was called We Are Marine that a lot of students basically used my name. There was these shirts and people would wear them and they would tell their story, under the assumption that they were Marine. So that way that at least these stories could get out there without, them facing any fear or threat or persecution. And so I don't exactly know how it happened, but I know that the first time that it was given to me, it was a complete surprise. I had no idea. The last couple of years, it's been Senator Durbin being my number one as far as making sure that I received the education that I really needed. This last one was a shock. I found out in April, and we had requested at least until December because I knew I was scheduled to graduate in 3.5 years. So I figured that last semester I could at least get that, and then if I went back, I would at least have the degree that would help me. Be bilingual and having an American degree is very valuable in Costa Rica, and would set me up to have an okay future down there. So, but I got surprised and I was given another year, but I've been told it's the last year. So that's why I'm looking forward to the presidential election and seeing what possibilities can come of that. But like I said, it's just a discretionary measure, so it's up to them. There's no specific criteria that you have to meet. I don't really understand it, but I've been very lucky and I'm thankful for it. So.
If you get into law school, will you be able to get a student visa and stay in the U.S.?
Under the status that I'm in, I don't have a status. So in order to apply for any visa or anything, I would have to leave the country and risk the 10-year ban because at this point in time, unless there's a change in the laws, I won't gain any status and therefore can't apply for a student visa or citizenship or anything of the sorts. And so that's kind of why it's an interesting situation to be in, and that's why it's kind of a joke, but at the same time it's true that I'm legal to be illegal right now. I'm in a better situation than what most students who get a private bill are in. I had a friend of mine who's actually from Haiti who actually faced persecution if she were to have to return to her homeland. And she's under a private bill and she can't legally work and she can't legally drive in her state that she lives in because of not having the proper documentation. So again, I count how lucky I am knowing that, but that's why, I count myself to be in limbo because even though I may do well on my LSAT, I could go to school for a semester if there's a school that allows for spring entry, but aside from that, I can't plan for anything else. So I'm at least going to take the LSAT in October because it's something that I've really worked towards and I've been prepping for, and I'm proud to get that opportunity. But after that, I don't know.